This is Carolyn Angleton, and today I'm speaking with Thelma González. She is from Mexico City, Mexico, and is a recent graduate in the fields of chemistry, pharmacy, biology from the National Autonomous University in Mexico. She's also been selected in 2017 by Biotechnology All Biotech as one of the young leaders in science. And she's the founder of Sputnik, a biotech initiative related to plastics and the circular economy. And thank you so much for joining us today. The other thing is that you just led the BioSummit Town Hall as the moderator. That was fantastic. That was really exciting to see what came out of that. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we could start today by you talking a little bit about Sputnik, why you started it and what its mission is.
Yeah, totally. Well, hello, this is Thelma, and it sounds like degrees, chemistry, pharmacy, and biology, but in my country it's just one career, so don't think I studied 3 degrees, it's just one.
Cool.
But, well, most of it was chemistry, and when I was studying, all my teachers and all the professors and researchers said that we have only like 2 options after we finish our studies, and one of them was to work in an enterprise, like go from the beginning, taking copies, serving coffee, like being in the very, very first step of the job. And the other way was to study a master's, to study a PhD, and be a researcher. Are only 2 options. But once I had my genetics class, my mindset changed because I discovered that we could use microorganisms for different things, and I discovered that the purpose of my life was to end with plastic pollution. I don't know. I just woke up one day and said, like, no, I have to end with plastic pollution. And following the normal paths of my career, working or researching, maybe I couldn't make the impact I wanted to end plastic pollution. That's why I decided to say, okay, I may start a project to end with plastic pollution, and that's how Sputnik was born. And the first idea of Sputnik was to find another option for the single-use plastics. For example, cutlery, cups, plates we use in events, in parties, that we only use them for a couple of minutes and then throw them away. And they took like hours years or decades to degrade. So thinking about a little the chemistry of that polymers, I said, like, no, maybe there's no way to make them easier to degrade, but we can degrade them by ourselves. I mean, like, you can eat them and then you degrade it and they become poop. So you'll be the one to degrade all the things we use for eating. So with Sputnik, long story short, in Sputnik we create edible cutlery, plates, and glasses, and that's what we do to avoid the use of single-use plastics.
That is incredible. It's both creative and it's high-level biotech kind of technology with bacteria. And I love that, it was your genetics class where you started thinking about what microbiology could do. That's really fantastic. I'm wondering what it's like, what your situation is like right now. You've just graduated with your undergraduate degree, and I know you had plans to go on to graduate school soon. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit, have your plans been diverted by the COVID situation, or what's going on for you right now?
Yeah, actually, I finished all my courses, all my classes, like 1.5 years ago, and then I dedicated my life to this entrepreneur new project. Taking classes of soft skills like communication and even management classes, because as a scientist you don't get any of those skills. I mean, only technical skills. So I had to spend some time to learn new things, to found an enterprise, to start this project. So for 1.5 years, I've been studying that. I've been learning storytelling, learning how to communicate. learning a lot of things and creating all the edible cutlery that works, that functions for water, for hot plates, for anything. So for 1 year and a half, I did that. But then I had a problem that my team broke up. They went to study their masters. They were not as engaged as I was with the project. So I decided to stop that on December and say like, okay, I will look for maybe a job or to learn the skills I need for management to continue with Sputnik in a better way.
Right.
But then COVID came, and I'm like, okay, maybe I will slow down. I will see if I can study, for example, a master to have more technology in the enterprise, to see that I can learn more things and to adapt to my project. And I did apply for a master's degree in Scotland.
Wow.
And master is biotechnology and management, which I think
Wow.
is awesome because
That's awesome.
totally it's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it is with technology, so it's perfect to me. But as I've never had a job, well, I don't have any money to pay for it. So I was looking for scholarships or funding from government, from the industrial sector, from wherever I can get money.
Right.
But it has been hard because of COVID, not only for logistics. I mean, for example, Mexicans are not allowed to go to the European Union. I think people from the United States aren't either.
People from the United States aren't going anywhere till they
Yeah,
get the
exactly.
situation under
Yeah,
control and until there's
yeah,
a rule. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. We are in a similar situation. We cannot travel there.
North
So
America.
yeah, starting for
America.
that, we are not capable of going there.
Right.
And in the other hand, jobs are not happening maybe this year in Mexico because we are having unemployment rates that are growing every day. So
Right.
it's hard.
So that's compounded everything, both the travel aspect and then the funding aspect for scientists. Has most of the money in the country been diverted away from things like scholarship towards fighting COVID, or what's changing the situation?
Yeah, for example, here, like the Institution of Science uh, is the one that provides the funding for all the people who wants to study abroad. And in this moment, of course, it's the one in charge of the innovation, ventilators, all the treatment, all the things related to COVID. So most of the money is going from other dependencies to that one, and that one exactly is like spending all that it has to fight COVID. So scholarships are being closed, and they are accepting like 10% of the people that they accepted before. And apart from that, we're a lot of Mexicans. So it was really competitive before the pandemic. So with this situation, it's way more difficult.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It just tightens everything down. Everything tightens.
Yeah.
I'm wondering this kind of follow-up question. What is it like to be a young scientist in your country, and particularly a female scientist? And I always see these things as having roots in a historic kind of dynamic, as well as one that's currently evolving, but it's kind of a continuum between what was, maybe what is, and what we would like it to be. How is it being a young woman going after science in Mexico now?
Yeah. As I said before, maybe the generation before us, like all our teachers, all the researchers, are like really committed to help Mexico or their city, like in a local view. But now, like the trend is to try to think of global solutions because we are fighting different problems. For example, global warming is not something that will only affect Mexico or China or the United States. It's going to affect everyone. So we are encouraged, like in international summits or international gatherings, to have a global view. But in my university, it's still being like really national view. So when I come to say like, oh, I want to end with plastic pollution, it's like, yeah, but what can you do in this lab for this city, for this country? And for example, most of the scholarships are like, yeah, we give you the funding, but you come here back and work 5 years in Mexico. And it's like, okay, I can do that, but it would be better if I can move and look for different knowledge in different parts of the world. So we have a really nationalist view. And in the other part, for example, in the part of being a girl in science,
Yeah.
um, when I started my degree, my undergrad
Hmm.
degree, I felt like, no, I've never been uh, this encouraged to be a scientist. My family has always been supportive. All my teachers in high school and middle school always said like, "Oh, you're so smart. You will be an excellent scientist."
You are.
And I was like really supportive. So I said like, "No, it's not that hard to be a female in science." That's what I thought.
Hmm.
But when I started to go to research labs, I realized that like most of the researchers, let's say like 70% of them were men,
Hmm.
and for the 30% were women.
Hmm.
And there was something I that changed my view, that it was like, for example, all the women researchers that have kids or children, like twice a month or 3 times a month, have their children around in the lab, like, in the safe corner coloring their books or whatever, because they didn't have someone to babysit them.
Uh,
So it was totally normal for us to see like all the kids from all the women researchers, and there were men researchers that have 3 or 4 kids, and we never met them like in years. So that made me think like, okay, maybe if you're a woman researcher, you also have the responsibility to take care of your kids all the time. And if you're a man researcher, you can take like, well, I'm working, I don't know about my kids, take care about them. And it's not the same feeling, that women have to take care about the kids and the house and everything, and apart their researcher, their research area, more than men that can only say like, oh, I'm working, don't bother me, I get out at 6 o'clock and then I will sleep. So
right.
that's a different, like really subtle, that I
Yes.
start to see. And for example, another specific thing is that my faculty, the School of Chemistry, has never had a woman director. They have always been men. They're like, I don't know, 20, 23, 20 something
Mhm.
uh, male directors, and we have never had a woman. And we have very capable researchers,
Of course.
and we have never had that opportunity, let's say.
Yeah. That's, the topics that you're mentioning with childcare and even, I mean, it's a joy to meet your colleagues' family and kids, and
Yeah,
you'd think that would be a joy that men would be able to
yeah,
be free and be responsible to share in as
gals.
well. But I know that these issues are becoming even more manifest as people are having to work from home due to COVID. And there's a very, very unequal kind of responsibility of whose conference call gets interrupted by kids versus male versus female, and
Exactly.
those dynamics of who has that extra responsibility to do the fundamental work for childcare in addition to keeping your career going. um,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, these are hard things. Do you talk about that issue with other female scientists, or do you have, what's kind of your way of speaking back to some of those subtle kind of messages you're getting, both in terms of not having female mentors as well as kind of a division of home family life that's very different for women? What kind of
Mm.
strategies do you or other scientists that you're working with use to push back against that kind of thing?
I think, well, I know that many scientists are gathering and giving more opportunities to girls in science. And most of them, like in high school, to encourage girls to follow the scientific path. Because it's hard when, well, it never happened to me, as I've said, but I have many cousins or many people that I know that they have been told, like, women should not be part of science, they should be in the kitchen, they should be taking care of the kids. And I think that I for example, when I was in a class, I started to ask all my female colleagues if they wanted to have kids, and the answer was the same, like, I don't know, I will study my PhD and then I will see. And for example, for men, it was like a totally yes, yes, I will have kids. Like when I'm 30 or 30 something, I'll have kids. But they never thought about their professional way before having kids. I mean, it was natural for them. And for and that's why I said, like, okay, maybe when you are a woman, you have to divide your life and decide if you want to have kids or don't.
Yeah.
And that depends a lot on your professional um, path. For example, I discovered that I want to end with plastic pollution, and that will not be easy. So I prefer not to think that I won't have kids, because I won't have time to end with plastic pollution if I have a kid, because women with kids have much more responsibilities.
Right.
So in my case, it has like affected the decision of having kids or not. And there are many initiatives, and all the women researchers are like trying to get, for example, daycare for kids after school, for let them continue with their
Yeah.
work, and sometimes like babysitting like all the kids in one house
Ah,
to help one to each other and all that.
yeah. Yeah.
So they are trying to come together, and that's important because only women are doing that. And there is like men are like, yeah, do whatever you want, that's your problem, and that's not our problem. I mean, it's the problem of both parents. So I think women are the ones that are starting to act, but we do have to educate somehow men
Yeah.
about that it's their responsibility too.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, that's well said. It's been interesting to watch the differences happening in countries right now, in countries that have female leaders, and what's the
Yeah.
success rates, they're having. There's many factors involved with that, but there's, at this point, internationally, we do have some really strong female leaders in countries, and this kind of juggling of even having a nursing child in your office while you're leading your country. Those kind of things just are fantastic to see. It's difficult to juggle both, but the idea that you can be a mother, and in a sense, even those mothering skills give you skills that are much needed in terms of what's
Yeah.
happening currently. Give you a model of care and caretaking for the world, based in
Yeah,
mothering.
exactly.
Yeah, so that's very cool. Let's shift a little bit to just to a wider picture in terms of your country in general, and the way that what seems to be in collision in many countries right now is politics and political leaders versus scientific thought versus
Yeah.
people's need to work in order to eat. There's this collision of these different things happening. How is that playing out in your country, and what's your perspective on it? Are people listening to science? How is it getting entangled between those three things?
Yeah. For example, here in Mexico, of all the jobs, I think 50% are informal. I mean, they are just like small markets or people that are not, that have no social security,
Mhm.
and just informal workers.
Right.
And that kind of people only have like money for 1 week or two to eat if they don't go to work, and
Yeah.
maybe less time. So they really have to get out and work. And at the beginning of this pandemic, we all thought like, yeah, the government should take some money and give all those people maybe some help, and most importantly, help all the other ones that have a formal work to continue working in that way. But the government said, no, I won't give money to anyone, but if you want some money, you can take it, but you have to pay it back later.
Oh, so
So
it's a
all
loan.
the, exactly, we
Wow.
have a debt now. And all the people that have informal jobs are not going to select having a debt,
No.
even when they need the money, because they have to pay that. And if you only work to eat, you cannot be paying. So that was a bad idea, but there was not any help from the government in that way. There is a specific amount of money the government gives to old people,
Mhm.
and they are getting like more money to them. So that's fine because they are the ones that have to be like in their houses and they can't go out and all that. But it's only for that kind of population. But here in Mexico, we all live like in families, so that money is like for all the family. And at the end, all the people that has to go out to work comes back to a house when an elderly person is. So it's not safe to only help those people thinking that they will be saving home when they live with all their family, and
That's
it's
right.
hard to control that. So
Yeah, that's right.
it's it's not clear what was the objective of that help. But yeah, the government certainly hasn't give any money for people or for enterprises. We don't, well, big or other kind of enterprises have no help from the government.
Hmm.
So most jobs are being lost because there's no more money. I mean, restaurants, cinemas, all
Right,
that are closing like forever because they won't have the money to reopen.
right.
So
Yeah,
that's
that
hard.
that creates a really desperate situation at that point.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to know what are the steps forward from that. I guess we just have a couple minutes left here, and I want us to end on a hopeful note. So I want to ask you, both you and I are involved in this Bio Summit community bio movement, and part of that is trying to create a sense of unity and collaboration, and actively look for elements of hope, and create those moments of hope, to try and help move the world,
Okay.
forward with that. And I wonder, what kind of thoughts do you have about, you're in a position where you're just trying to launch your career, and
Yeah.
it's been seriously affected by the COVID kind of thing. And I'm wondering, for undergraduates in particular, their whole trajectory of studies is potentially changed by the situation here.
Yeah.
Um, what what kind of strategies, what kind of elements of hope do you see, even in small ways, of
Yeah.
means or ways or suggestions to people to move forward at this point?
Yeah. I think this pandemic, with all this like free time we have and the internet, are really helpful. For example, in these months, I've been developing new skills, like learning how to code, learning, practicing other languages, trying to learn how to do new things, even small things like I don't know, dancing or stretching your body. It
Yeah.
helps a lot. And somehow I think this pandemic helped us to be disciplined because we have certain tasks for the day. So you have like all the time, all the day to say, okay, I will exercise 1 hour, I will study 1 hour, I will read 1 hour. So in that way, I have said like, okay, I have 2 random hours a day. In that random hours, I say like, what can I learn? And I start reading about architecture or reading about art or reading about 2 centuries ago. So
Yeah.
in those times, I try to disconnect myself from COVID because that's really stressful to be watching all the news.
Hmm.
So I felt like, no, no internet, no whatever. I will read. I will take this time to me, and I think that's a really positive thing that we can all do together. For example, I am part of All Biotech, Red of Latin Americans, and we have like 3 hours just to say like to have virtual parties and to talk about certain topics and to play. And when it's the birthday of someone, to party and all that. So have special places and your day really really nice is a positive thing about all this pandemic. And it's always also fine to feel sad, anxious once a week or something like that. It's totally fine to say it and to express it to a community. And it is it is fine to be part of something and from
Yeah.
your own house so you don't feel
Right.
like all alone. So I
Yeah.
think that's the best thing to learn other things.
that interconnectivity, and then also the self-discipline of finding things. You're also mentioning going, having multiple levels of knowledge, you know, like expanding your fields of knowledge.
Yeah.
I have to ask you before we leave, how many languages do you speak, Thelma?
Fine spoken that I can have a good conversation for, but I can read another four. I mean, I've been really like interested in knowing how to read things. For example, Arabic, you only see like dots and lines, and it's like, oh my God, I want to know how to read that. So that took me to learn how to read Russian and Greek and Japanese and Chinese and see it all comes from one language. That's one of my biggest passions, to
Uh-huh.
know how one language came a lot of them. So when you realize that maybe in Japanese there's a similar word than in Spanish, it's like crazy. And to know like when you're speaking German, you can learn something because it's similar somehow to Russian. It's like crazy. So yeah, learn languages, and that helps a lot with your memory and all the neural connections.
Yes,
So
yes, yes, yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I love that. Multiple levels of thought, multiple levels of discipline, multiple levels of interconnection. That's wonderful.
yay.
Thanks so much for talking today. And
Thanks to you.
talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.